these are forward and backward.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for allowing me to take 50 more minutes of your time before we go to the posters and the drinks. And I decided that instead of talking and give you an update on the technology side, what we're doing at Thermo Fisher, I thought, let's say, in line with, let's say, this new facility and also the spread of cryo-electron microscopy in the field, I would like to give you an update on how we at Thermo Fisher think we can, let's say, enable new customers to become successful in this field of cryo-electron microscopy. Now, I can be very short on this slide. We've seen this before. There's let's say, enormous increase in structures that have been determined by cryo-EM. And also we see that this whole technology of cryo-EM rather quickly spreads now also, let's say, into other facilities than the traditional EM facilities. Just one slide on, let's say, an optimal workflow as we see it for cryo-EM, and then especially here for single particle, which starts, of course, first of all with the sample preparation, and we've heard quite a few talks today also about sample preparation. There's still improvements going on in sample preparation. It's not straightforward just taking your drop-off sample, put it on a grid and freeze it. There's still a lot to be learned. And typically also to get, let's say, also access to these infrastructures, you need to come with a good characterized and well-characterized sample. And first of all, what people do typically is start with negative screening on a classical 120 kV tool. When that is all optimized, you can go into the cryo-EM workflow, work on the vitrification, optimize the vitrification, and then later on go to the high-end systems to collect the high-resolution data. The tool that we position here is a Talos Arctica, so that's a 200 kV system, also with an autoloader that can be used for cryo screening. And the main advantage of this tool that, of course, it uses the same software platform, but you can take the cartridges from the autoloader, from the Talos Arctica, and ship them to, let's say, these infrastructures, and you can use the same samples that you've screened on the Talos Arctica and then collect the data in the Titan cryos. Now, with this expansion of cryo-EM, we've also seen that the number of tools that are installed worldwide is growing extremely rapidly. That also puts some burden on FEI, or FEI, I should say Thermo Fisher. I'm still not completely used to that. Let's say, to support that network and all those installed systems. So we've hired quite a few new cryo-EM application specialists that go on site to help people to collect data and to set up their system. We're expanding in terms of service engineers. And another thing that we are implementing at the moment are regional customer success managers that really, let's say, manage the whole process from, let's say, placing the PO, the installation, and getting the system to work and to acquire the high-resolution data. So how do we see, let's say, this customer success management? It has a few components. We have ECS consulting, so that's for the environmental consulting, because these high-end systems also need a very stable environment to collect these high-resolution images. We're working on, let's say, also on the IT part to provide IT support, not providing the IT infrastructure, but providing support and help you set up the IT infrastructure. Another thing that we have started, and we've run, let's say, the first pilot, are cryo-EM schools to get people, let's say, hands-on experience and train them on cryo-EM, not only hands-on, but also in theory. And another thing we're implementing are what we call cryo-EM acceleration portfolio. So that's a package that you can order which consists of a few components like workflow validation. Typically what we did in the acceptance of a microscope, take, let's say, a standard sample, for instance, a cross-grating, and determine whether the microscope could reach its resolution. But for all you biologists, that is not interesting. The interesting part is, can it resolve structures down to a certain resolution on a biological sample? Of course, we have the on-site application support. The other thing we're implementing is remote application support, also remote system monitoring. And we've also developed a workflow app that can really help you, let's say, in setting up your experiment and running that experiment. We have different packages with different components in terms of how many days of on-site application support and how many remote access. The workflow validation, we're going to do that on apoferritin. Let's say our application specialist will come on site and show you that your system is capable of achieving at least 4 angstrom resolution on this biological specimen. Also, the reconstruction will be done at Thermo Fisher. So we control then the whole workflow from, let's say, providing the sample, collecting the data, and also do the reconstruction. With that sample recently on the cryos with the Falcon 3 direct electron detector, we reached, let's say, 2.6 angstrom resolution. On the cryo-EM schools, we had a first pilot in January of this year at NICEN, which is the Dutch national facility for cryo-electron microscopy, together with Leiden University and CNB for the data processing part. This was a 9 weeks course focusing on sample preparation, optics, camera, data collection, but also reconstruction. We successfully delivered the first 6 trained people, but also what we learned from, let's say, this pilot is that for many people, 9 weeks, to come 9 weeks to a location for this training is in many cases too long. We also found out that we need, let's say, a minimum start level. The people that were on this course had different levels, and that also made it a little bit more complicated. And for the practical part, the absolute maximum number of people on a microscope is really 3 people. If you put more people behind a microscope, then they won't really learn from this. So if you look at what we are teaching, and at the end what the outcome should be, is that it's based on a few modules. One is, let's say, a decision matrix. So basically meaning, what is my sample? What's the concentration? How big is my protein? Also, what kind of a resolution do I want to achieve? If you put all that information, let's say, into the workflow app, it will give you guidance to, for instance, which magnification to use, which dose to use. So that really helps you in setting up. Then there's the microscope check to see whether the microscope is okay, whether it can reach the resolution. Sample prep, then screening the samples, and then finally the data collection. So that's one of the things that these students need to learn at this school. At the end, they get a sample, and they have to go through these modules and let's say, run a successful data set. So based on this first pilot and also the outcome of this pilot, we've decided to run these cryo-EM schools a little differently. There will be, let's say, online modules available that people can access. They can study the modules. At the end, there is a test which is kind of, let's say, an entry into the practicals for those 4 weeks, so that we can really focus in those 4 weeks on the practical part of that course, and then at the end there is the certificate. These online modules, we do that together with Grant Jansen, so they're based on the videos that are available already from Grant. We will modify a few and add a few. Those will be freely available also on the iPad app. You can download that app. You will then get access to these online training modules. But let's say for the workflow app, where you can, let's say, type in information and which guides you really through the data collection, for that you need a license, which is a paid license. But at least the online training modules are freely available for all people. So that will be, let's say, the second pilot. These have been now organized. One will be at OHSU in Portland. The date has changed. This has moved to February of next year, and then another cryo-EM school at Nissen, probably March, May timeframe, also next year. Also, if people have already ordered, let's say, on-site application support, that can also be traded into these cryo-EM schools. Then the workflow app, so it really guides you through the data collection, not only for single particle, but we also have included now cryotomography. It automatically, let's say, adjusts the components based on the system that you have, so you can type in which detector you have, which acceleration voltage you want to use, and these kind of things. There will also be an integrated lab book, so you can make notes, so that later on you can recall what you have done in a previous experiment. You can also provide feedback to Thermo Fisher, so we will have, let's say, regular updates of this workflow app. I have a test version with me, so if you're interested to see how this workflow apps, just come to me and I can show you how this works on the iPad. So it also has, let's say, different levels. There's a level for people that really start to do cryo-EM, also including some instruction videos that run on the iPad. There will also be a module for experienced users with, for instance, with advanced calculations to set up the system. And then finally, with this customer success manager, there will be, let's say, quarterly meetings with this, with our customers to, let's say, to review how the system is performing, what kind of issues there are, and how we can help them further to, let's say, to be successful. And with that, I thank you for your time. Happy to take any questions, and if you want to see the workflow app, just please come to me.
Thank you, Wim. One question over there.
Actually, I have tons of questions, but I will start with a very simple one. If you are doing online training, do you have any special requirements about the running the job? Special requirements for the computers? Are they running the job and reconstruction on your computers and Thermo Fisher, or it's supposed to be done on the local computers where the user trying? Because it's a really tricky question.
For these cryo-EM schools, all the students will get, let's say, a laptop with all the software installed. So that we have
but you are suggesting to do possibly, I'm not talking about the very delicate issue which I ask you in private, but now, for example, if training is going online.
Yes.
So, which computers are supposed to be used online? Yours computers or local computers? And if it's local computers, what kind of requirements do you have for them?
So the training itself does not go online. The instruction videos and the theory, that is what will go online. The real practical part, let's say, and also the practice on doing the reconstructions, that will be part, let's say, in this 4-week cryo-EM school. So people, if you want to do it's like it is now done, let's say, in all these facilities. Everybody has its own infrastructure and uses their own software to do the reconstructions. And for the time being, we as a company stay out, let's say, of this part of the workflow, because there are different packages and people want to use different packages. What we have to make sure is that the data that comes out of the microscopes can easily go into these different packages for, let's say, the reconstruction and alignment.
Okay, thank you very much. One more question here, and then.
Is there enough experience now to say if you save your grit in Arctica and move later to cryos, is it as good as fresh one, or is it maybe during transfer it suffers a bit?
We have good experience of, let's say, sending samples to different facilities. Also, people that send samples to us for a job, that typically goes well. But of course, we cannot, let's say, guarantee to all our users, because it really depends on how you transport it and how carefully you are in, let's say, removing your specimens from the microscope and the way you send it to these facilities. But if you keep it, let's say, in clean liquid nitrogen, then the sample doesn't deteriorate during the movement from one system to the other system.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll cut the